Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining me back on the channel for another episode of Go Figure. Before we launch into this week's video, just the usual plea to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, you're enjoying this little series or anything I'm doing with the podcast, please spread the word, keep sharing, keep watching. Now let's go figure. So today is Friday. I hit the button on last week's video yesterday, which was Thursday, and back again because if I turn you around, you'll see I've got some more stuff. And I did hint in the last video that I got quite a bit on the way because of some of these special events that were being run on Facebook that I got involved in the run up to WrestleMania weekend. So I thought rather than save everything up like I normally do, because I've got quite a few guys that I need to thank for this stuff when it arrives, and I don't want to keep them hanging. And to be fair, it's going to be that much probably. It's just going to keep going through the week. So I thought I'm going to keep like a bit of a running vlog of as the stuff turns up. So we'll go with it and see how it goes. It might only be a few days, but hopefully it'll keep it ticking along. So I've got a couple to show you at the moment for this part of the video, but let's go over there and have a look, see what I've got. As you can see, I'm not at the desk. I'm actually in my car because I just went to film opening the two packages I had, and it's going to be one of those days because then I got a message to say that my vintage parcel had just arrived at the collection point. So I'm off on my way to pick that up. So I've got something else to show you. Let's go. That one, as you can see, it's a bit flat. It's not a figure. It's something just as exciting, and then a little something that I decided to treat myself to. But let's get back, and then I can show you what's in there. Okay, after that brief interlude, now I've got an extra package to do. Let's start with the small one. So we've got a mix here. This is vintage, this one. This was one that was it was on my list of ones I wanted at some point, but didn't necessarily have a need for it right now. I didn't necessarily need this particular version, but it came up. It was cheap basically. It's a good price. Straight into it. There we go. I think he's a must in any Jakks BCA line. Badass Billy Gunn. So I had this version, I would say, of Billy Gunn, but not these. Not this attire. So exactly the same apart from the attire. I had him in I think it was the bright sort of lime green trunks with I think it was Mr. Ass on the back. But this is quite a fun one. I quite like the colour of these, except it has been really worn on the back, but I wasn't too fussed for what I paid for it. I'm really not that bothered. You got the BA on the so Badass on the knee pads, Alpine Stars. Quite cool little bits of detail there on the boots. So there we go, one half of the New Age Outlaws, 1/4 of D-Generation X Badass Billy Gunn. He can go with my Triple H. At some point I will add Road Dogg and X-Pac to it, so I've got D-Generation X like I used to. So yeah, quite a fun one. Not in the greatest of condition, but a cool one to have. Again, I'm not too fussed about them being pristine or anything like that. So now to the slightly bigger one. This one is a reason why I needed, to be honest, to open this today, because I need to say thank you to the guy who sent it. So anyone who is in the collecting game, the wrestling figure game, will probably already know about, if not be a member of, the Wrestling Figures UK Facebook group, run by top gent called Martin Harris. And this item in here came directly from Martin. I don't know if it was from his own collection or one he had been gifted as a prize, but what Martin and the group were doing last week, as I record this, so it was WrestleMania week, running up to WrestleMania weekend. There was a bunch of events going on within the group. There were live sales, like claim sales. Again, I did nab a few things from that, so we will see, hopefully, if this video goes on, those items as I receive them. This one was quite cool though, because they hosted a live Q&A, WrestleMania sort of trivia quiz, and I hadn't done a Facebook live event like that before, not really, but I had the time. My missus was out. I sat down. It was a Wednesday evening. I thought I'd have a go, test my knowledge, and I got a little bit invested in it when I got there from the off, and I actually started getting questions right. And lo and behold, at the end of the evening, I actually ended up the winner. I ended up amassing the most points, and I ended up winning. So it's fantastic. It was a fantastic event to take part in. But obviously, on top with that, I get to pick my prize out of a few possibilities of great figures that he had on offer, and this was one that I picked. And I'd already picked it out in my head once I'd seen the winner's choice picture that Martin put out in the group. And I thought, if I do end up winning it, which I thought was a long shot at the time, this was the one I was going to go for. I don't go for new figures necessarily. Certainly, again, I said at the top, not boxed ones, but this is my third boxed one now. But this one was one I wanted in my collection, and I had to have it when I knew I had the chance. So we're looking at the new release WWE Ultimate Edition Great Muta. As you can see there, with all the different choice of heads, hands, the sort of hood there, the jacket. I've never really paid much attention to the new style figures, but they are total collector's items now, with the different parts that you could exchange them on. The Grey Muta was one of my favourites. When we're looking back at WCW NWA, late 80s, early 90s, particularly sort of the years 89, 90, I absolutely loved the WCW, what WCW was doing. And this was one of the guys that I saw on a few VHS tapes that I had. And I loved, he stood out. He still stands out for me. It's such a unique style, so exciting to watch. His matches with Sting, Ric Flair, Starrcade 90, which is one of my favourite pay-per-views, one of my favourite WCW events, where Great Muta and Mr. Saito got to the finals of a tag team tournament they were holding that night, and went against the Steiner brothers. One of my favourite matches, although it's not very long. Absolutely loved Great Muta, still do. And didn't think, I thought eventually I would get a Great Muta figure in the collection. Didn't think it was going to be one of these, didn't think it was going to be this soon. But thank you, Martin. Thank you for the guys that put on the quiz as well. Such a great evening, and I'm so stoked to have this. All I need now, I think, really, to add to this would be an NWA television title belt. Would look awesome on this. Obviously, when he wore the title in '89, he was also NWA heavyweight champion in sort of the 93 kind of era, I think, when they were running that as a separate title to the WCW one. So maybe won the big gold, possibly, but the title belt I associate with Great Muta is always going to be the television title. Understand totally why WWE wouldn't release any of those, because obviously not their titles. So I may have to track one down. Haven't decided yet whether this one's staying in the box, or again, the fact that I got him at no cost to myself, it may be one that I think, just deserves to be out on display. It's a great box though. So I'll and ah about that. I'm not sure. He may well, because of I can display him in his entrance gear and that as well. It may just be too good to stay in the box, but we'll see. So there we go. So there's the figure editions. Now, the one that I've just gone and picked up, as you can see, as I said in the video when I picked it up, this is obviously not figure shaped. Very flat. But this is something else I have an appreciation for, that I'm not going to go down, and saying I'm going to have a collection of these, but it was something that I wanted. It's just simply that, really. Something really took me back to my childhood. I was massive on magazines when I was growing up. Now, these aren't just your typical magazines. These are the old WWF program magazines. I never had any of these. Always used to see them advertised inside the main WWF magazine at times. But this was a set of 3. Take a look at this. I'm not going to go through the pages. I might do a separate video where I go through the pages of this, because I kind of like those sort of videos. But there we go. So this, you're talking about, this is from probably, it says volume 201. Because Papa Shango's on, I'm going to say this is like 1992 rather than 91. It looked like 91 Undertaker there. Holding down Bret Hart. This here was the one that swayed it for me. Volume 207. Don't ask me why. But when I was a kid, obviously the British Bulldog won the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam, one of my favourite events, one of my favourite matches of all time. By the time I then rolled around to see, because I didn't see the weeklies in between, never got to see Davey wearing the IC title like this, except in the odd picture of magazines and that. By the time I got to see WWF on TV again, which was around that Survivor Series, he was gone. Obviously no longer the IC champ. That was Shawn Michaels. And when I saw this, it was again advertised in the middle of the main WWF magazine at some point, possibly after he left even. I just loved the image. There's something about the image of the British Bulldog wearing the IC title, which takes me right back. So when I knew that this was in it, I had to have it, because I've always, that image is always stuck with me. And I'll go through that, like I said, I'll go through those in another video. And there's also one there, Macho Man Randy Savage. If I'm not mistaken, quite possibly taken at SummerSlam 92 as well, because he's wearing the same gear. So that is volume 206. So I've got 201, 206, 207. I'm not going to go all out and try to get a full collection of these, but I do really love having old magazines, because I spent half my childhood, if I wasn't playing with my wrestling figures and watching videos, I was reading magazines front to back. So yeah, really, really cool addition into the collection. Stay tuned for more sort of pictures, clips, little videos maybe I'll put together going through these ones. But yeah, so far, not even Friday lunchtime, this week's haul off to a cracking start. Hi guys, it's now Monday, just before lunchtime. Doorbell just gone, and I was hoping it was going to be the postman, and it is. And I've got 2 shipments that I was waiting on. I didn't realise they were going to turn up at the same time. So it's one of those kind of Houston, we have a bit of a problem situations. To be honest, it's a problem that I'm very happy to have. The problem being where I'm going to put all of this, because I haven't got any of my space set up yet, beyond what is above there. with the galoobs. So there's some really, really cool stuff in these. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to get myself set up, get over to the desk so I can start opening these up and show you what we got. Okay, I've had to set everything up a little bit higher than I normally do because obviously the size of these boxes. So if I have to adjust as we go through, do excuse me. Let's get the big one down there for now. Let's have a look, see what we've got in this one. Now I can't tell which is which at the minute. I have a feeling. So basically, we've got two shipments here. We've got one from my new best friend JJ, who is keeping me going with this collection in avenues that I didn't expect I was going to. So he is the guy where a couple of episodes ago, I got all the WCW trading cards and all these really cool stuff. So he's hooked me up with some cool stuff as well this time around. And we've also got a shipment from Stephen Duncan. So those in the Wrestling Figures UK Facebook group will know Stephen Duncan. He is a toy seller, and he has got some fantastic stuff that he sells. And he did an online claims sale on in the Facebook group during WrestleMania week. That was one that I did. I did purchase a couple of things. So I have a feeling that's the bigger box. I have a feeling this might be JJ's. I'll try and get into it carefully as I can. JJ, if this is yours, mate, well done for packing it so well. I'm going to do the usual, speed up the process so I can get to the good bits. Here we go. Finally, we're in. Hooray. Okay, yeah, I can tell the first couple of items I can see here. This is JJ's shipment. So, some of the paper out of the way. First and foremost, dude, you package these so well. So, firstly, we have got additions to the Jakks BCA collection. We have got LOD 2000. So, those who were familiar with WWF back in 1998, I think this was. LOD, Legion of Doom, went through something of a rebranding as LOD 2000, and they came out at WrestleMania 14. After a bit of a storyline kind of breakup a few weeks before, we thought the Legion of Doom were dead and buried, and then they came out in the tag team Battle Royal, I think it was, with Sonny randomly as their new manager. A little bit of a different look. Shoulder pads. They still had the shoulder pads. It was looking a bit more kind of graffiti-led. And then they had, for some bizarre reason, these biker helmets, which are really, really cool. Now, I didn't have these figures back when I was a kid at all. I had the normal issue, what I would call Animal, who's very, very similar to this. The sort of stance and everything on this figure, it looks like a reproduction of that mold that they used for the normal Legion of Doom that they brought out sort of around about 97, I think. But showing the shorter tights here on Animal. But these are, and JJ pointed out actually, he didn't realise that the names were actually on the helmets. These are really quite cool. Say what you will about this era of Legion of Doom back then. I think the biggest change here was with Hawk, really, because he got rid of his sort of double mohawk type thing here, and you can tell actually on here this is like a repro. They've just used the same mold as the old Hawk, because a bit like you can with Arn Anderson with the galoobs, you can tell just about. I don't know if you can see if it's really clear on camera, but they have they basically painted where he used to be bald here, either side of his double mohawk. His so it gave him basically a full head of closely cropped hair. I don't understand this, and I saw this back in the day. I don't understand. I don't remember Hawk wearing like a vest on top, and he's still got the long tights as opposed to Animal, who went for the short ones. But these are great figures. Thank you, JJ. These are fantastic. Again, the helmet there, Hawk's name. You know, say what you will about this era of the Legion of Doom, they didn't really seem to have much direction around about this time, and it was a bit odd having Sunny involved, and I think they got into a rivalry then with DOA, Skull and 8 Ball, which didn't really seem to go anywhere. They started losing a lot more on TV. Paul Ellering came back in and he turned on them and sided with the DOA. It was all a bit of a mess. Not really a great feud to watch. But in terms of wrestling figures in the collection, these are quality. These are great. They'll look absolutely fantastic up there when I finally get my space sorted out. So, JJ, thank you so much again for those, mate. I happened to mention to JJ that I inadvertently had a little bit of a Jeff Jarrett collection going on, as we saw in the last episode, where I've got the WCW Toy Biz Jeff Jarrett, and I've got a hold of one of the TNA versions of Jeff Jarrett. He then mentioned he's got 2 of these, and these aren't obviously vintage. These are new products, courtesy of the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. So Brian Myers and Matt Cardona, and JJ had 2 Jeff Jarrett bendies. You have this one, which is the classic. I think, if I'm right in thinking, this is the attire, based on the attire that Jeff Jarrett wore in Your House 2 when he lost the IC title to Shawn Michaels, which is one of my favourite matches of all time. So when I knew that he had this one, he's also got the other Don't Piss Me Off era, you know, short cropped hair and shorts from the 98 era for Jeff Jarrett, or 98 onwards. But I needed this one because I've also got somewhere, it still hasn't arrived yet, I don't know if it ever will, I've got the Jakks BCA Double J, the one that I spoke about on the Figured Out episode of the podcast. That was one of my favourites. I've got him. So I love that era, that kind of the Double J era in WWF 93 to 95 for Jeff Jarrett. So this is great. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to keep him boxed or I'm going to have him out. He's in fantastic condition. Obviously, I guess, JJ, you kept him boxed. As you see it here on the back, there's the other Jeff Jarrett, which JJ does have, and I haven't taken him up on it at the minute. They've also released Conrad Thompson. So this was all to do in line with Jeff Jarrett and Conrad's podcast, My World. There you go, My World there. So awesome. Thank you so much again. Not Jakks BCA, but it is in line with what I am collecting. Speaking of which, he's also... Now this will have made more sense if I had got the figure. So this is the figure that I was talking about. Let me turn it over. As you see, all the ones on the back here. This figure right here, that Jeff Jarrett, is the one I have got. I've ordered. I bought from someone from Vinted. It's in the post. Apparently, it hasn't turned up yet. One of my favourite figures of all time. It was in my top 5. And JJ mentioned he got the box for it. So I will have, once I've got the figure turn up, I am going to be probably putting them in the box, and I'm going to have, like I say, a little bit of a Jeff Jarrett display going on. Which will be fantastic. I won't have the glasses or the hat. I think I'm going to try and track them down if I can. But yeah, might seem a bit random at the moment, but that is going to make a lot more sense when I have got the Jeff Jarrett figure. Now we come through to the JJ is such... I struggle sometimes not being able to buy more that he comes through with because he's got such cool stuff. So we'll go through a few non-figure related items now, just quickly. So we've got some of the shinies from the Merlin, the Merlin WWF stickers collection from 93. Now, I don't think these are the pink book. I've looked in, I think these were the black book, which came in 94, because the 93 one was the pink one with Bret Hart on the front. I don't think Adam Bomb was in there at the time. It would be right that Doink, Steiners, and Savage were in there, but not Adam Bomb. So I think this was the following years, which would have been produced probably late '93, brought out, if I remember, in '94. But I loved the Shinings, and I especially love, obviously, I talk about my love for the Steiners as well. So it's great to have those ones. Doink always looked good in sticker form, I found as well. So thanks for the little holder as well, mate. Pop those in there. Cool. And then we get, now a bit like the WWF programs I got through in the last video, I will probably do a bit more of an in-depth look into these, but he got some items I couldn't really pass up. The WCW Hulkamania Tour 1994 program. I think, if I remember rightly from what JJ told me, this was from the UK tour. Yeah, so it's got the United Kingdom and Germany. So this is the UK and Germany tour from 1994. I'm going to look at that when I've got a bit more time and a bit more, I can go through it in a bit more detail. I'll do another video of these items in a bit more depth. But I am a real mark for anything, again, 80s, 90s, WCW, NWA. So this is a fantastic, fantastic addition. Thank you. Another trip down memory lane. These sticker albums, as much as the magazines and figures were, these were my childhood. And this was the first one that I ever started collecting, because this was the one that was out in 91, I believe. Again, I'll do a bit more of an in-depth kind of look through it in another video. But yeah, I've got a bit of a mission here as well to possibly try and complete this over time, depending on how much it costs to get the stickers. But this, it's got the catalogue in the middle as well. This was one of my earliest wrestling things that I got involved in, as well as the September 91 edition of the WWF magazine was the first one. I then started collecting the trading cards, which kind of went alongside these, which is the blue collection ones, the classic collection, and then this, the Merlin sticker album. So yeah, great to have my hands on one of those. And finally, JJ's box of tricks. I've seen this listed a few people on like eBay and everything. I love these old programs, and previously I was really just one for buying programs for shows I'd been to. But when it comes to wrestling, I actually really love looking at some of these old ones. So this is from the European Rampage Again tour. I'm going to say off the top of my head, looking at who's in here, this is 1992. Obviously, we know the WWF exploded in popularity in Europe, especially here in the UK, in 92, culminating with obviously SummerSlam being in Wembley Stadium. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to have some good fun looking through that as well. I love the size of these things. They're huge as well. But that coupled with the WCW one from 94 and the sticker album, very, very happy chappy to have these. Thank you so much, JJ. So I'll pop them all back in there. I will sort all of those out a bit later when I've got a bit more time, a bit more space. So now let's bring the other bad boy, which this is the box of stuff that I acquired through Stephen Duncan's online claim sale. So this, like I said earlier in this video, I participated in a quiz that was hosted in the Wrestling Figure UK Facebook group as part of their festivities in the run-up to WrestleMania last week, or during WrestleMania week now. I got the Great Muta figure as a prize when I won that quiz. A couple of nights later, there was this claim sale, and I've never participated in a claim sale before. I went in really as an observer because I love seeing some of these, just seeing really the figures and the toys that that these guys have to sell. Didn't think I was going to get as involved as I did. But what I will say is what you're going to see in this box, all of this was get at a real bargain price, I feel, for what I've got. So again, thank you, Stephen, for doing the sale, and thank you so much for everything that I've got in here, giving me the opportunity to actually grab these. So there are some carded stuff. I started off really just wanting loosies because they're easy to display. I never really wanted to get caught in the whole got to keep them in the box kind of thing. But some of these did come up. They were boxed. I went for them with the intention of keeping them in the box, some of them I may well open up and display. So first, out of here, we have got Signature Series Jakks BCA, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I may have mentioned before that when I started collecting the Jakks BCAs, I started with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels from the Superstar Series 1. The next ones that I remember getting were from this Signature Series, Steve Austin and Mankind. This was the actual, obviously not the actual one I had, but this is the first Steve Austin figure that I ever had. And I loved the fact, put street clothes aside, this was his classic look. This is the iconic Austin 316 t-shirt, which if I was to open it, you can see it's got the smoking skull design on the back and the blue jeans. Simple, but this was Steve Austin. And this is how we knew him. Got the WWF stand in the back, which helped to display them, stand them up, which I did do back in the day with some of these. And looking on the back, that's the Mankind there that I had. There's the same kind of Road Warrior animal that I had, not from this series though. And again, Hunter Hearst Helmsley Triple H, similar to what I had in that first Triple H figure, just not from this series. And then you get the dreaded Stomp series. I did have Ahmed Johnson, which I only remembered after I did the video where I showed you the triple threat pack that I've got now. This was the version of Ahmed that I had. I had the Crush, and I had Brian Pillman. The only problem with these is once you take all of the armor and that off, they're so skinny. I mean, seeing Ahmed Johnson was practically flat. It worked with Pillman, yeah, fine, but with the bigger guys, Ahmed and Crush just didn't work at all. And the Monster Ring, I think we all had that. It was absolutely massive, even for the scale of these figures. But there we go. So acquisition number 1, boxed Signature Series 1 Stone Cold Steve Austin from the Jakks BCA line. Really, really happy with that. This next one, this was a bit of a grail one. So Stephen had, as part of his listing, he had a loose Marvelous Mark Merrow, which I didn't take up. I opted for some more loose ones, and then this came up later on in the listing, in the show. I always wanted Marvelous Mark Merrow. I had the option to buy him once, but I opted for the Mark Henry. There, I was in the Entertainer, and I had both of these, and Steve Blackman, I think, was on the shelf as well, and I opted for Mark Henry because I was trying to build a Nation of Domination at the time. They got Savio and that, but I passed this up, and then I never saw him again, so I never had the opportunity to get one. So I absolutely love this. So this is from the Jakks BCA Superstar Series 6, Marvelous Mark Merrow. This is when he returned after injury. He'd got rid of the Wild Man character persona, and he went back to his roots, being a former Golden Gloves champion. He did a boxing, like a boxer gimmick, and he worked mainly as a heel, which was odd to see after so long of being a face. But I loved the look, black and the silver shorts, taped fists, and this was a great one. And I could have had great time with him in my Fig Fred back in the day. But now I've got one, and rather than going for the loose one, I'm glad I held out and was able to get a boxed one. So again, not sure if I'm going to keep him like this or not. For the moment, I will, just because I think, depending how I display all these, having some of them boxed is going to be really cool. So there we go, Marvelous Mark Mero. Another boxed one that I really couldn't turn down when I saw it float across the table. 2 tough packs, which were double packs, either tag teams or they were, in this case, manager and wrestler. You had quite a few that did these 2 tough packs. But we have got here Kurgan and the Jackal. So obviously everybody knows the Jackal in AEW still now, I think, as his real name, Don Callis. And Kurgan, he started off as the interrogator in the Truth Commission, and then they disbanded the Truth Commission, and the Jackal managed Kurgan still, but more as this kind of monster character. Now, I had Kurgan originally, back when they released him, but I had the Oddities version, which was very odd because of him looking quite so angry and scary, but then he had like tie-dye tights, pinstripe tights and tie-dye top on and everything, and he still had these wristbands on as well. So it was a really this is the more truer version of Kurgan that I liked. It was when he was just himself, and he was still this kind of really terrifying heel. Obviously, Robert Maye, obviously now recognised as an actor in his own right as well, because he's been in Strain, he was in the 300 as well, just to name a couple. So it's really, really cool. You can still get his figures, and that again, a boxed 2 tough Kurgan and Jackal. I'm really, really pleased with that. What have we got on the back here? So the lines that we've just seen. The more 2 toughs. So you got the New Age Outlaws, you got the Nation of Domination with Karma and D'Lo. You got Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher, which were the ones that I acquired and that I showed in the last video. So they were actually a 2 tough pack, but I've got them loose. And then Jackal and Kurgan. From the other line here, Steve Blackman is one I'd like to get my hands on at some point. They were still going on with the stomps. I will never be collecting those. I will go on record now and saying I will never have that. Never have any of the stomps. There you go. Fantastic. So I think that's it for the box. Now I picked up some loose items as well. I'm really on a roll with getting these figures that I always looked at in the magazines or in the shops I missed out on, that I always wanted. So this is one of them, Crush. And fair enough, his face has seen better days, but I'm not in it for quality at this stage. I can replace some of these if I want to. For the price that I was able to get these for, I really don't mind. So Crush, this is back when he returned to the WWF in late 96 or mid to late 96. And they played on his convict kind of past. I think when he returned to the WWF, he'd only just been released from jail in real life. So they brought him back with like a jailbird gimmick. And I had the Stomp version, which is the same head, but I always just wanted the actual, ring clothes, as his ring clothes were back then, version of Crush. Quite wobbly. He might have a few issues standing up, but yeah, we'll see what we can do once we get the display properly sorted out. So yeah, the next one I loved. As soon as I saw him on the table, on Steven's table, I knew I needed to put him for him. Dude Love was always one that I wanted. I have a feeling before they re-released them as part of the classic Superstars with Jakks, this was the only Dude Love we had at the time. And I loved the look of Dude Love. I loved the fact that when he came in, he became tag team champion with Steve Austin. It was all, when they did Dude Love again in '98 when he was feuding with Austin, I didn't like him as much then. I liked it when it first came out. And I think just seeing Mick Foley, who we were used to seeing in really dark clothes, looking really dangerous and haggard and that, and then you see him dressed up like this. This is one of the Slammers series, so in theory, this action still works. There you go. There you go. That. So they got. It's the only thing I didn't like about the Jakks when they got to this kind of stage where they've got gimmicky actions on them, but the Slammers were pretty standard. My Gold Dust was a Slammers one. and his arms, I think, went in and out or something like that. And it still works after all this time. So yeah, I love the colours, the detail that's on here. They've got the shirt right. They got his, it's just exactly as Dude Love was in the ring. So yeah, happy to have him. Now the last two, well, the first two I pulled the trigger on in Stephen's listing just because I knew, again, as soon as I saw them, these were two that I never saw except in the magazines or on the backing cards. Tag team I always had a soft spot for because of the simplicity of the characters and the fact they hark right back to, we're talking sort of 70s, 80s here, gimmick, but the new Blackjacks. So you've got, I'm not sure who is who on here. I'm going to say, I think that is Barry Windham and that is Bradshaw. I think. I'll have to look it up and see. But the new Blackjacks, so Blackjack Bradshaw, Blackjack Windham. So Barry Windham and Justin Hawk Bradshaw, they came together very early 97, I want to say. I remember them being in a match with each other at the time, and then something happened, I think, towards the end where they actually, mutual show of respect or something happened, and they sort of came together and they pulled on Barry Windham's dad is obviously, or was Blackjack Mulligan. And I have a feeling Justin Hawk Bradshaw, maybe his uncle was Blackjack Lanza, if I'm right in thinking. I think he's got a tie to Blackjack Lanza. So they recreated the Blackjacks, the classic Blackjacks, who were the WWF Tag Team Champions, I think, back in the 70s. Really simple cowboy gimmicks. You've got the chaps, you've got the waistcoats, the hats. I just loved the fact that you could get these, and I always wanted them, and I've got them. So, however you're able to get them, it's fantastic to actually finally have the ones that you wanted for so long. So if I just do a bit of a roll call here, put them all together if I can. So, not a bad showing at all. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, JJ. I think this probably concludes certainly for this week, unless this Jeff Jarrett turns up, this will conclude my additions for this week. Maybe for the next few weeks, we'll have to see. So that's everything for this week, guys. As you can see, WrestleMania week did a real number on me in a sense that I bolstered the collection a lot more than I was expecting to, but I had to take advantage of some of those items that were coming up in those events that I was able to actually drop in on. Amongst my favourites, there's something. I've got some such great things this week that I've added in there, but I think probably the WCW Hulkamania Tour program is definitely one I didn't think I'd ever get my hands on. So I'm really, really looking forward to delving into that a bit more in another video. But figures-wise, out of all the boxed figures that I've got, the Mark Mera, the Steve Austin, and the loose ones, the Blackjacks and that, I think the find of the week for me is probably this here, the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Bendy Jeff Jarrett. I wasn't expecting to have a bit of a Jeff Jarrett collection going on, but lo and behold, I seem to be. And even though this is a new release and not really something that I set out to get, it depicts that era that I absolutely love, that mid-90s, especially for Jeff Jarrett. That look, that time when 1995 holds a real important part for me in terms of where I progressed my wrestling fandom, being able to actually immerse myself every week in it, and this right here was what symbolized that time for me. So such a great looking figure, and it's going to look great when I get more Jeff Jarrett's on the go. Let's keep adding to that. And as I stand here closing this off now, this is Wednesday. I know I've had another weekend of quite some interesting activity, so I will be bringing you all of those finds in next week's video. that may be it for a little while I try and firstly sort some space out to get all these things out and displayed properly, but also to try and build the funds back up again. But I've got some really cool stuff that I picked up over the weekend. A little bit of impromptu online buying, but some great items coming your way. So stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, share, do all the usual things, and join me here next week. See you then. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.